I remember the way her touch barely lingered, like she was trying to memorize something she knew she shouldn't. The air between us had gone still, filled with that soft hum that happens when two people pretend they're not thinking the same thing. I didn't move. Neither did she. It started with something harmless. A late visit. A favor I could have refused, but didn't. She had called to ask if I could help fix a flickering light in her living room. Something small, something she said she couldn't reach. I told myself I was just being kind. But when she opened the door, barefoot, hair loosely tied back, wearing an oversized sweater that slipped a little off her shoulder, kindness wasn't the first thing that came to mind. She was 40, maybe 41, with that calm confidence people earn only after they've been hurt once or twice and learned how to hide it. Her smile wasn't practiced. It was tired in the most beautiful way, like she didn't smile for everyone anymore. I tried to keep things light. Talked about the light bulb, about the tools I forgot to bring. But every time she looked at me, it felt like she was reading something off my face I didn't mean to show. Her gaze lingered a second too long. When I climbed the small stool to fix the light, I could feel her standing behind me, close enough that her breath touched the back of my neck. She said something about being too old for house repairs, her tone light, teasing. I answered without turning around, something about her not looking old at all. I meant it. Maybe too much. When I finished, she thanked me, reaching out to steady the stool as I stepped down. My hand brushed hers, warm, soft, hesitant. Neither of us pulled away. There was a beat of silence so sharp I could hear the hum of the old refrigerator in the next room. "Coffee?" she asked finally. "Sure," I said, though I didn't even like coffee that late. We sat across from each other at her kitchen table. The window behind her was cracked open, letting in the faint scent of rain. She kept playing with the handle of her mug, tracing small circles with her finger, like she was trying to think of something to say and couldn't find the words. I caught myself staring at her hands, the way they moved with purpose, gentle but precise. "You're quiet tonight," she said. "I'm thinking," I replied. "About what?" I hesitated. "About why you called me." That made her look up. Her eyes held mine, searching. Something in them softened, then darkened. "Because I knew you'd come," she said, almost whispering. She stood up, walked past me, and stopped by the counter. Her hand rested there, but her body leaned just slightly toward me. The space between us felt smaller than it really was. I could smell her perfume, something faint, like vanilla mixed with rain-soaked wood. When she turned back, her eyes didn't look like they were searching anymore. They looked like they'd already found the answer. "You should go," she said quietly. But her voice didn't sound like a goodbye. It trembled, low and unsure. Her hand came to rest on my arm, and for a second, her fingers moved, slow, tracing, almost apologetic. I should have listened. I didn't move. And then, a sudden knock on the front door. She froze. So did I. Her hand slipped away, and the air changed. Heavy again, but this time with something new, panic, or maybe something worse. She looked at me, eyes wide, lips parted as if to speak. "Don't say anything," she whispered. The knock came again, louder. And that's where everything started to unravel. The knocking stopped after a long silence, but it left something between us that didn't fade. It stayed, like smoke after a candle goes out. She stood still, her hand pressed to her chest, eyes fixed on the door as if whoever had been there might still be watching through it. When she finally turned back to me, her voice had changed, quieter, softer, like she'd remembered something she didn't want to. "It's fine," she said. "They're gone." She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I should have left then. I even told myself I would. But instead, I found myself saying, "You look different tonight." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Different how?" "I don't know," I said, though I did. "Like you've been waiting for something. Or someone." She laughed lightly, the kind of laugh that's half truth, half escape. "Don't read into things you don't understand." But her words wavered, just a little. I leaned against the counter, close enough to see the faint line of her collarbone under the loose fabric of her sweater. Her hair was falling in soft strands around her face. I wanted to reach out, just to move one, but I didn't. Instead, I asked, "Were you ever married?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Once. A long time ago." "What happened?" She exhaled slowly. "He left. Said I made everything feel heavy." Her voice cracked at the edges, and for a moment she wasn't composed or untouchable. She was just human, someone who had been left behind. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. "I don't usually talk about it," she continued. "People don't want to hear about what's broken. They just want you to smile and move on. Maybe they don't know how to listen," I said quietly. She looked at me then, really looked. There was something in her eyes that softened, something that made me forget how young I was compared to her. "You're too young to understand that kind of thing," she murmured. "Maybe," I said. "But I still do." She stepped closer, slow enough that I could have stopped her, but I didn't want to. Her hand brushed my arm again, light as static. "Do you always talk like that?" she asked. "Only when someone makes it hard to think straight." She smiled at that, not amused but caught. Her fingers stayed on my arm, just a little too long. The silence stretched. I could hear her breathing, feel the warmth of her skin through my sleeve. Then, just as suddenly, she pulled away. "This isn't right," she said, shaking her head. "People would talk. You don't need that." "I don't care what people think." "Well, I do." She turned her back to me, but I saw the way her shoulders rose and fell, uneven, unsure. I took a step closer. "You're not the only one who's lonely, you know." Her breath caught. She didn't turn around, but her hand reached back, finding mine behind her. Her fingers wrapped around mine, hesitant, trembling. We didn't speak. We didn't have to. The world outside could have disappeared, and I don't think either of us would have noticed. That touch, quiet, forbidden, and trembling, said everything neither of us was brave enough to say aloud. The room had gone quiet again, too quiet. The kind of silence that feels like it's listening. Her hand slipped from mine, but not far. She turned toward the window, her voice steady, though her fingers still trembled slightly. "You should go," she whispered, "before this turns into something it shouldn't." But neither of us moved. I could see her reflection in the glass. Her eyes lowered, her lips pressed together, like she was arguing with herself. I wanted to say something, anything, but all that came out was a soft, "Do you really want me to?" Her answer never came. A sudden vibration broke the silence, her phone buzzing on the counter. She froze. My heart thudded once, hard. She reached for it quickly, turning the screen away, the glow lighting her face in sharp, fleeting blue. "Work," she said too fast. The message tone echoed again. Her hand lingered on the phone, then she locked it and set it face down. "You shouldn't see me like this," she murmured. "Like what?" "Like someone trying to remember where the line is." Her words hung between us, fragile and real. I stepped closer before I could think better of it. "Maybe there isn't one," I said softly. She turned, and suddenly, we were inches apart. Her breath hitched. My pulse was so loud I could hear it. The faint scent of her perfume, something faintly floral, warm, wrapped around me. "Don't," she whispered. But she didn't move back. "I'm not doing anything." "Exactly," she said, her voice breaking on a small, nervous laugh. "That's the problem." Her gaze fell to my lips for a fraction of a second, quick, involuntary, and it was enough to tilt the air. I reached up, almost without meaning to, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't stop me. Her eyes closed for a heartbeat. Then a knock at the door. Sharp. Sudden. We both jumped. She stepped back so quickly her hand knocked over the glass beside her, water spilling across the table. The knock came again, harder this time. "Who is it?" I asked. She swallowed. "My neighbor." A pause. "She checks in sometimes." We stood frozen, the air between us thick with everything that almost happened. She forced a smile, too bright, too careful. Go. Through the back. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to stay. My hand brushed hers as I turned, and for a second she caught it, just held on, before letting go. I slipped out into the cool night air. The door closed behind me, but I could still feel her touch like heat on my skin. A moment later, I heard her voice through the thin wall, polite, composed, nothing like the silence we'd just shared. I started to leave, but stopped halfway down the steps. Through the window, I saw her look toward the door I'd just gone through, eyes soft, distant, full of something she wouldn't let herself say. And for a second, she almost opened it again. Her voice was quieter than usual that night, the kind of quiet that hides something. The air between us carried the same unspoken weight, that slow, dangerous pull neither of us could name anymore. She stood near the window, arms crossed loosely, watching the faint drizzle blur the streetlights. Her hair fell forward as she turned slightly toward me, eyes soft but guarded. "You shouldn't keep coming here," she murmured, her words barely reaching me. I should have agreed. I should have walked out. Instead, I stepped closer. The sound of the rain filled the silence between us. My heart pounded too loudly. I was sure she could hear it. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face without thinking, my fingers trembling against her skin. She didn't move away. Not this time. Her eyes met mine, steady, searching. "You don't know what you're doing," she said, but her breath caught halfway through the sentence. "Maybe I do," I whispered. It wasn't what I meant to say, but it came out honest, raw. She turned her face slightly toward my hand, her cheek warm under my fingertips. The scent of her perfume, soft, familiar, pulled me closer than I had any right to be. She took a slow step back, but her hand brushed against mine as she did, like she couldn't quite let go. "You're making this harder," she said, voice trembling. "I think you already decided that," I said. Her lips parted, the faintest smile flickering, something between surrender and defiance. She closed the distance herself this time, stopping just close enough for me to feel her breath against my collarbone. "I tried," she whispered. "I really did." It wasn't a confession, it was a breaking point, the crack in the wall she'd built between us. Every reason she gave before, every warning, fell apart right there in front of me. I could have said something, anything, but my voice was gone. I just stood there, close enough to feel the heat of her, the rhythm of her breathing. Her hand lifted, hovering for a moment before it touched my chest, her palm flat, her fingers trembling. Neither of us moved. The room felt smaller, the rain quieter, like the world had stopped to watch. She looked up, eyes bright and unsteady. "If we do this..." Her words faded, caught between the fear of what comes after and the ache of what we already knew couldn't be undone. I leaned in, not enough to touch, just enough for our foreheads to almost meet. The silence throbbed between us, thick with everything unsaid. Her lips parted, barely a whisper. "Don't." But her hand stayed where it was. And just as the moment teetered on the edge of something inevitable, the sharp sound of a phone buzzing on the counter cut through it. She froze. I did too. Neither of us looked away. The sound stopped, but it didn't matter, something already had shifted. Her voice came out barely audible. "We can't go back now." And for the first time, I wasn't sure if she meant the call, or us. The silence after the phone stopped buzzing was heavier than any sound. She didn't move at first, just stared at it, still glowing faintly on the counter. Then she turned, her face unreadable. "You should probably go," she said, voice flat, controlled in a way that scared me more than anger would have. I didn't move. "Who was it?" She looked at me then, really looked. "It doesn't matter." But it did. Because she was trembling. Because she couldn't meet my eyes for long. Because she only ever spoke like that when she was hiding something. I took a step closer. "Someone knows, don't they?" Her jaw tightened. "Please don't." And that "please" said everything. The room felt smaller again, like the air itself had turned into glass. She pressed her hands against the edge of the counter, knuckles white. I could see the conflict on her face, guilt and something else, something like fear. I didn't tell anyone, I said quietly. I know, she whispered. But someone heard. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, heard? She hesitated, then sighed. My sister came by last night. I didn't know she was still outside the door when you left. The memory hit me in fragments. The half-open door, the sound of footsteps on the stairs. She heard enough. She continued, her eyes glistening now. And if she tells anyone... She stopped herself, biting her lip, shaking her head. She won't, I said, though I didn't believe it. Her voice cracked. You don't understand what this could do. I reached out instinctively, my hand brushing her arm. She flinched at first, then let it happen, her breath catching in her throat. I'll fix it, I said, too fast, too desperate. You can't fix what shouldn't have started, she whispered. That hurt more than anything. But she didn't move away. She stood there, eyes glassy, chest rising and falling like she couldn't decide between running or staying. And then she said it, quietly, brokenly. I told her it was nothing. That you were just helping me. The words should have stung, but they didn't. They just made it real. I took another step forward, close enough now that her perfume wrapped around me again, familiar and wrong in all the right ways. Was that a lie too? I asked. She blinked, startled. What? That it was nothing. Her lips parted, no sound coming out. Then she exhaled, shaking her head slowly. I wish it was. The air between us shifted. Everything she tried to bury, every denial, every warning, cracked open in that moment. I didn't touch her, but she felt it anyway. Her eyes closed briefly, like she was bracing herself for something she couldn't stop. When she looked up again, her voice was quieter. If we keep this going, I'll lose everything. I nodded. Then lose it with me. She laughed softly, but it wasn't amusement, it was surrender. You don't know what that means. I leaned closer, close enough for her breath to warm my cheek. Then tell me. Her hand lifted slightly, hovered near my chest, then fell away. And then, after a long, trembling pause, she said the one thing that changed everything. She's already told him. I froze. Told who? Her eyes met mine. My husband. The clock on the wall ticked once. The world seemed to tilt. And before I could breathe, she whispered, barely audible. He's on his way here. The sound of a car door slamming outside tore through the silence. She froze. I could hear the faint hum of an engine cutting off, the gravel crunching beneath steady footsteps. Her hand went to her mouth, trembling. He's here, she whispered. For a second, I couldn't move. The air felt charged, sharp, like lightning before it strikes. She turned toward me, eyes wild, breath uneven. You have to go. But I didn't. I stepped closer instead, until the edge of the counter pressed against her back and there was nowhere left for her to retreat. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. Please, no, I said quietly. Not this time. We stood inches apart, the world outside narrowing to the soft rhythm of her breath. Her perfume, warm, faintly floral, filled the space between us. Her chest rose, quick, uneven. The faint tremor in her hands matched the pounding in my veins. I can't, she said, but her voice cracked halfway through, betraying her. You already did, I whispered. Her lips parted, not to answer, but to breathe, shallow and uncertain. I could see the war happening behind her eyes, duty, fear, the weight of years she'd lived before me. And beneath all that, something else. Something neither of us could deny anymore. Outside, the footsteps grew louder. Her hand lifted, instinctively pressing against my chest. She meant to push me away, but her fingers curled instead, gripping my shirt like it was the only thing keeping her upright. He'll see you, she said, voice shaking. Then let him, I replied. She let out a broken laugh, one that wasn't really laughter. You don't know what you're saying. I do, I said. I know exactly what I'm saying. The space between us vanished. Her forehead touched mine, soft and trembling. The world seemed to stop moving, no time, no sound, just the pulse in her throat and the nearness of her. "You'll ruin me," she breathed. "Maybe," I said. "But I'll ruin with you." For a moment neither of us moved. Her fingers brushed my jaw, lingering there as if memorizing the shape of something she wasn't supposed to want. My breath itched, but I didn't look away. Then, as if pulled by something stronger than reason, she leaned in, so close that her words became a whisper against my skin. "I can't do this," she said again, but her body didn't move. The knock came then, sharp, deliberate, echoing through the small room. Her eyes flew to the door. I could see tears now, faint and glistening in the low light. "Go," she whispered. "Please." But neither of us moved. The silence between knocks stretched, heavy, unbearable. Her hand still rested against me, trembling but unmoving. Then the second knock came, harder this time, followed by a voice calling her name. She looked at me, one last, pleading glance, and said the words that would stay with me forever. "If you stay, everything changes." I stepped closer anyway. I know. The night had finally quieted. The house was still, no more voices, no more footsteps at the door. Just the soft hum of rain outside, slipping down the glass in thin, silver lines. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped together, staring at the floor like the answers were written there. I stood across from her, still trying to breathe normally, though everything inside me felt like it had been torn open. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The kind of silence that wasn't empty. It was heavy, charged with everything we hadn't said. When she finally looked up, her eyes were softer, quieter. "Tired. You should have gone," she murmured. "I know." "Then why didn't you?" I hesitated. "Because I didn't want to leave things unfinished." She let out a slow, shaky breath and leaned back, her head resting against the couch. "You don't understand what this could cost." "Maybe not," I said. "But I know what it costs to walk away." That made her glance up, just for a second, but it was enough. The air shifted. The tension wasn't sharp anymore. It was tender, fragile. Like a thread stretched between us, about to snap if one of us moved too quickly. I crossed the room quietly and sat beside her. The couch dipped slightly, and she tensed, just for a heartbeat, before relaxing again. The rain outside grew heavier, soft thunder rumbling in the distance. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume mixed with the clean scent of rain through the open window. She turned her head toward me. "This shouldn't have happened." "Maybe it was supposed to," I said softly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she looked at me, really looked, like she was seeing something she hadn't allowed herself to before. I reached out, slowly, carefully, giving her time to pull away. But she didn't. Her hand met mine halfway. Our fingers brushed, then intertwined. It felt small, simple, but the kind of small thing that changes everything. For a while, we just sat there. No words, no explanations. Just the rhythm of rain and the warmth of her hand against mine. When she finally leaned in, it wasn't sudden. It was quiet, deliberate, her forehead resting against my shoulder, her breath steadying against my chest. Neither of us needed to say anything more. The storm outside softened, the world calming with it. Her voice came low, almost a whisper. "You'll forget me someday." I smiled faintly. "Not tonight." She gave a small laugh, tired, honest, real. The kind that breaks and heals you at once. My hand tightened gently around hers, and in that still moment, it didn't matter what came next, the rules, the fear, the years between us. What mattered was that we were here. Together. The rain kept falling, but inside, everything finally felt still. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?